And here we are with Dave Hootke. Hootke. I love that name. We were discussing that earlier, Dave, and no, I didn't. I was not even close. I probably pronounced it the way most people want to pronounce it,
Yeah,
but I was not even
all
close,
good.
right?
It looks like Chowka, but yeah, somehow it's pronounced Hootke. I don't know. My parents told me that. I've been going with it.
That's it. Go with it, right? Obey your parents. That's the best rule of thumb there. But Dave, you are here with us from Lead 222, and I'd like to hear, and I think some of our guests would like to hear as well, a little bit of your youth ministry origin story. How did we get to youth ministry?
Yeah, well, going back, came to Christ when I was 10 years old. Actually, my mom was a Jehovah's Witness, and my dad grew up Catholic. And so when they got married, it was not quite growing up in the church. So,
Right.
but my mom came to Christ, and I saw her have a passion for God's word, and I wanted to have what she had, and so it was really cool. And we moved to Illinois, and going through junior high and high school, we connected with a great church. My dad came to Christ, and but sports became my identity. And just kind of, I'd go to church, but wasn't really connected and growing spiritually. And we got a new youth pastor at our church my junior year in high school, and he was always trying to get me to come. But I grew up wanting to be a meteorologist, Paul, and
Oh, wow.
still love the Weather Channel, and they have all the weather apps, and so I graduated high school and was going to go to a certain college, be a meteorologist. And my youth pastor got me to go to a Christ in Youth conference. I had never even been on a retreat. I've never been on any, student youth group trips. So I went to this in Milligan College down in Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
and God just started to work in my life and in my heart. And I remember being in the balcony, and this speaker was giving an incredible message. He gave an invitation, and hundreds of students at that time, like my peers, coming to receive Jesus.
Mhm.
And I just felt like the Lord just whispered, "That's what I want you to be about." And so right there, I committed my life to go into youth ministry. I talked to my, my pastor and youth pastor, and I said, "What do I do now? Like, I'm already enrolled at a college." Like, so they had all gone to Ozark Christian College, and I'm like, "Where is that?" They're like, "Joplin, Missouri." So I enrolled. I enrolled in June, was there in July, or like got accepted in July, and was there in August.
Wow.
And then I, studied, and my first ministry was in Ohio, and man, it's been an incredible journey.
Wow, David, that's fantastic. I love that you were going to be a meteorologist. I was going to be a professional bowler.
Oh, wow.
I was on the list,
I
you
mean,
know,
how great is a sport where you can eat nachos while still bowling?
and wear crazy pants
Yes.
sometimes. I mean, I think that's about as close to youth ministry as you get, eating
That's
nachos and
true.
wearing crazy pants. Well, Dave, we got you here today to talk about this great survey that Lead 222 has put together. And I want you to come in and just tell me, where did this come from? Where were we?
Yeah.
What were you trying to? What was the impetus for this survey?
Yeah. Yeah, great question, Paul. We had been hearing, data from Barna, especially in 2021, about, 29% of pastors thinking about getting out of ministry, and then it just kept rising. And then we heard it early 2022, 42%. And we just really felt like, what would that be within youth ministry? Because it was always, more broad. And so we just felt, let's kind of dive in. And coming out of COVID, there's a lot of things we're learning, but let's get a pulse of where youth pastors are in all of this. And so we partnered with the National Network of Youth Ministry, and we took a survey, and we found out that 60% of youth pastors that took our survey had thought about leaving their current ministry over the last year. And so it was obviously, a little alarming. And so we were able to have a deeper dive into a lot of this. And so that's kind of the origin behind that too.
Well, yeah, and I just saw a video recently where and it was I believe it was a staffing ministry that did it, was talking about the great need that so many youth pastors have left, that they're finding churches are finding it hard to staff their churches. Are you hearing this? Are you hearing the
Oh
same thing?
yeah, yeah. So Lead 222 that I serve with is a youth ministry coaching and mentoring organization. So we coach and mentor youth pastors to lead healthy lives, families, and ministries. But something that I started in Lead 2 years ago was the staffing division. So I help churches hire youth pastors, and then we coach and mentor them. But yeah, Paul, I mean, what I've seen too within this journey the last 2 years of, the pool has definitely shrunk, right? And not only has it shrunk, there are more youth pastors getting out of youth ministry than are getting in. But
Yeah,
also too, coming out of COVID, there's a lot of, even where people are saying, hey, if I'm going to take a new ministry, I actually just want it in my geographical area. I want to live close to home. So then it's become even geographically hard to find, because people are only wanting to live in a certain area as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely a piece of the puzzle there, which makes it hard for uh, staffing groups, but also churches. I don't know how many churches look locally versus nationally. For their youth pastors.
Right.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of raising up from within too. By the way, I think that's always, if you've had a great youth ministry or young people in your church grow up and they're still there, I mean, put them to work.
That's right. Yeah.
They know your church better than anybody.
Yep. Yeah. And we've seen, we've come alongside, some churches that has happened.
Oh
And
wow, that's great.
and it was actually great to have an outside, staffing place to affirm what they're seeing as well. So that has happened, but it is, not as common probably as it should be.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Back to your thought here on 60% thought about leaving in your stats there in the survey. And then later on, 21% thought about leaving the ministry altogether. What were my original question to you was, why are some people staying? And we kind of discussed that too, that there's some people that are there. It could be for all kinds of reasons. Financially, there's not another job opening, there's not something closer to where they want to live. But of those 60% that thought about leaving, of the 21 that thought about leaving, 21% thought about leaving ministry altogether. What were some of the reasons that they gave for that they wanted to leave?
Yeah. I think, some of them are a lack of care. I think there's just an area where the churches, unfortunately are moving very fast. And there's just a lack of care that's happening, and many are feeling that. I think there's a lack of clear vision coming out of COVID. I think there's a lot of churches that are stepping on the gas. They're trying to get back the numbers that were pre-COVID. And because of that, I think they really just haven't honed in on, a clear vision of where we're going. And it's just kind of playing catch up mode. And so I think a lot of youth pastors, youth ministries are struggling because they had a certain kind of plan, before COVID, and then it changed, right? And then you're navigating all these Zooms and different things, and you're amping up all your online ministry. Well, there was never really a lot of conversations to be like coming out of COVID of like, hey, what should be dropped? What we need to evaluate, these things that we added rather than, taken away. So there's a lot of things that have been added, but yet they're still just trying to do all of those things. And so there's a lack of clear, vision from that. And I think there's, some of the things too that we're hearing and seeing is a loss of passion for their calling. And
Unpack that a little bit.
yeah. So, I think as youth pastors, one of the things that we love is to be able to relationally disciple and connect and come alongside students, right? Well, COVID hit and it totally changed, how we did youth ministry. There, we missed a lot of the retreats. We had to cancel mission trips. The small groups looked different. So, one of the things that happened is there was a lack of fruit that we got to be a part of. And so when you're not seeing the fruit all of a sudden, and there's still high expectations, and there's still things that, being asked to do, I think there's just a little bit of a passion that was lost in the shuffle in these last few years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the things that get your blood going, right?
Yeah.
And I think you say this in the survey, right? You say that the impact that youth pastors want to make, they don't feel like they're making that because of certain dynamics, whether that's numeric dynamics, the numbers are down, so I'm not getting my dopamine levels up. So there's not a lot of reason to push in to like, if we're not having the retreat, or if I can't have a dozen or 15 or 25 or 30 on the retreat like I used to, on this thing, then maybe it's not worth doing. And so COVID becomes that great BCAD type of line, right? Where there's before COVID and after COVID type of line, like you said, where where expectations, the same expectations you had before COVID followed over into that. And when it didn't go back to ground zero, go back to normal, some sort of normalcy, then you're saying that a lot of youth pastors said, yeah, this is not what I signed up to make an impact. I signed up to do the thing, and the thing's not happening.
Yeah. And as we kind of, looked at all of the data, that came out of the survey, and, and we also then talked with youth pastors, we interviewed youth pastors, we interviewed senior leaders and so forth. And, I think there was a few insights that really rose to the surface from the data. And, a few of them I'll share with you is there's a giant shift happening within the church that has revealed vastly different generational values, expectations, and ministry philosophies between youth workers and senior leaders. And so what we found is, a lot of the senior leaders are of the older generation. So you've got Gen X, you've got boomers.
Careful now, careful.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, so yeah. You've got younger leaders that are Gen Z, millennials.
Yes.
And what we found, like with that older generation, there's still the industrial age mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with this younger generation, you've got more of a digital age mindset. And both, like even the industrial age mindset, that served the church really well.
Yeah.
But what's happening is there's just generational gaps. And so the values and different things are clashing right now. Yep. And so when they are clashing, where the data rises to the top, where a lot of people feel frustrated, is because they're not able to get on the same page. Okay. They're not able to have clear and realistic expectations. Right. And so my encouragement to, youth workers out there that are listening that might feel that way is we also have a responsibility to lead up. And that means being able to say, I'm going to have a conversation with my supervisor and to be able to hash this out. Like, here's the reality that I'm in, and I'm feeling this, right? And being able to, like, okay, in the reality of I'm in, the expectations I have are this. Can we talk about that? What really is realistic in this environment right now? Can we get on the same page with that? Yeah. And when youth workers have done that, it really has helped be able to then, like, okay, I can take a deep breath. Maybe I'm not, like my job's not in jeopardy as much as I think, but we can get on the same page. So that's a big deal. The second thing is there's a lack of organizational health within churches that has led to too many issues that are taxing on youth workers. Okay. So
Yeah,
there is a piece where there has been unhealth, and we
oh,
can't,
100%.
right? Like, we can't discredit that.
I've
There,
been in them. I
I
can I,
have too.
I can testify. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother podcast, though. That's a whole nother episode.
I know. I know. Yeah. Right, Paul. But there is such truth to that. And gosh, if you're in that, we get it, we understand. And those are things that you have to really pray about and discern and seek wise counsel and so forth to seek healthy next steps. But there's a reality there that's happening. And, those are things that we have to wrestle with as a church. Like, how can we improve the health of my team? How can we improve the health of my church? So that's a reality that we found in the survey. The third thing is that youth workers feel overworked, undercompensated, and underdeveloped by their leadership. And then the fourth one was COVID has compounded, not created, all three of these issues.
That's right. That's right. Those issues existed long before COVID.
Yeah.
And COVID, I would go so far as to say, has exposed it.
Yes.
And showed it for what it was, which was pastors and other staff and other people talking past each other on the grind, production, right? You make an illustration in the survey talking about how Ford, came up with a great way back in the industrial days to produce a car, right? And there's a lot of pastors who bought into that from those generations of how to mass produce something without having too much conversation, right? The things are doing the work, the machines are doing the work, we're producing cars, and we put them out into the world. And so when you say that, that these, pre-COVID, what COVID did was reveal these things that are already, it didn't start it, didn't create it, but is actually revealing, what's happening. And I don't know what well, let's go to the one you talk about being overworked. But youth workers are saying overworked, and I understand that. But I watched a video recently too of Simon Sinek, and Simon Sinek is a great author, great business leader, mind thinker, and he said one of his or several of his employees or one of his employees was leaving and cited that they're being overworked, and he said to himself, "Overworked." I said, "I know what you do all day. why are you overworked?" But that being said, I know and understand the overwork part. So what is a good workload then? So youth pastors are listening. They're trying to determine, am I being overworked, right? For the amount of compensation I have, or for the hours or the contract or whatever it is they signed up for. So what is then, if you can describe a good workload for a youth worker, and how much are youth workers saying yes and saying no, and how much responsibility should a lead pastor take in balancing that workload? So if you could break some of that down, I'm sure that the listeners are going, they have pen in hand, Dave, right now. They're saying, let me take notes on this.
Yeah. I think, as I coach and mentor, youth pastors, I do hear this. So not only is it, we saw it in the data, and I'm seeing it as I coach and mentor, and I'm sure you are too, Paul. And, and you hear about lots of events and programs and churches trying to get back to numbers that were, pre-COVID. They're pressing on the gas to get there. And, we always said, like, there are certain seasons in youth ministry, right, that you just know are going to be busier than others. And then it's really trying to take the pendulum and swing it back and make sure that, the next season you get time that it's not like that. Because if every season is busy, that will lead to burnout. Okay. You just can't have every season, be at a pace that's unsustainable.
Right.
And so I think that's where it really comes down to, man, I have to improve my time management. I have to take ownership. Now, listen, whose responsibility? I think it's everybody's. I think it's, a supervisor being able to ask really good questions and to hold somebody accountable, and to encourage and to help in all of that. And if you're not sharing some of that with your supervisor, you need to be sharing on some of that. And if there are things that you struggle with on getting things done, then seek a mentor, seek a coach, there are a lot of people that do time management really, really well that
Yeah.
can come alongside us.
Yep.
But we have to take ownership of our calendar. Everybody's given the same amount of time.
That's right.
And so, but I would say, like, we don't need to be lazy. We have to work hard, but do it in a healthy way. But I think it comes down to what's an appropriate workload. I think it's, for me, like a barometer for me, my wife will tell me, like, she'll tell me too, like, hey, you're working too much, so that's a barometer. Maybe a barometer is, your supervisor. There's a mentor coach. So you got to have some accountability in place and managing. If it's just becoming, oh man, I'm working 60, 70 hours all the time. Well, that's not sustainable. Okay.
No, especially like you said, for those who are married with children, the wife will tell you that there are things getting undone.
Yes.
Why is the door still creaking? Why have you not replaced the broken blinds? Why is this thing a mess? Why is the car falling apart? And we put, as youth workers, men especially, put a lot of time in job identity, in trying to do a good job and trying to work and trying to do all those things. And we tend to ignore maybe some things in the home front, but you're absolutely right that that needs to be how youth workers that are listening can scale their jobs appropriately to where the workload is not causing such chaos in the home. I would say that's probably a good indicator is when you start seeing chaos in your home, you might be spending too much time at work because some things didn't get handled. And I'd also put in there, listen, if you're listening to this and you're watching 6 hours of Netflix a day, stop it. Okay. Just stop it. Okay. I know you need all this time, but listen, you can't run. If your ministry, if your church is asking you to do X amount of work, you can't spend all that time in whatever it is, whatever you enjoy. And I mean, Netflix is the big joke, but anything that you're doing, that you're overdoing, probably in the sense that you need more recreation or me time or that kind of thing, you have to put in balance what the real expectations, not even like overwork expectations, just your real expectations that are being expected of you to show up to meetings, to have the once a quarter outreach you have to plan, and you have to have the thing. So Dave, you're exactly right. You got to balance those things out.
Yeah, you do. And if you have signs where you're having trouble sleeping, there's, anxiety, you're not eating well, you're not exercising. Listen, guys, gals listening, we have to own too healthy lifestyles, and to implement that. And sometimes if we need to schedule in our calendar going to the gym, we need to do it and tell our supervisor, hey, here's why I'm doing this. I'm still getting my stuff done, but I'm prioritizing this. So some of it just comes down to really being disciplined and growing in our disciplines, to do that well.
Yeah, you can't. And youth pastors, that's why they tell you in airplanes, put the mask on yourself first and then put it on your child. Because if you are unable to help, you're not going to be able to, if you're not functioning right, you can't help anybody else. Right. So you've got to figure out your stuff so that you can be able to help the students that you lead. And if you're not paying attention to yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not organizing your life in such a way that you're able to feed yourself. I mean, look, you get your church to buy your gym membership if you want to put it under, your budget for all that matters, and just say, look, that's just part of lifestyle ministry, of lifestyle. Listen, we want to, contribute to that and say, hey, go to the gym, once a month or once a week or whatever you want to do so that you can come in and be ready and healthy, mentally and spiritually and physically to do the tasks that we're asked to do. Put it under educational budget, whatever line item, evangelism. As long as you share the gospel at the gym, that's an evangelism program. That's right. Okay, so just put it under that line item and you'll be just fine. Let's jump into real quick. You said that, you talk about what kind of coaching that people need or looking for. 28%, like you said, are not being developed. And like you said, across the board, that's a desire for us to be developed. We got to look for it. B, the pastor has to take a responsibility for their staff to develop them and be in relationship with them. What are they looking for in the coaching, you think? What do you think when they say, look, what will a coach do for them that maybe they're not getting even in their own home front?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's such a great question. And I really, hope too that churches will be wrestling with this too, because it's both sides again, Paul, of as far as making sure leadership development is taking place. Sometimes I think the church can tend to side too much towards leadership development rather than, really like discipleship development.
That's a great distinction you make, by the way. In the show notes, by the way, there's a link to this survey, as I said at the beginning of the show. But it's important to bring that back around, that you make a great point in the survey itself about leadership and discipleship. So please continue.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's a big deal. So, here in Lead, we talk about inside game and outside game. And inside game is our heart, our relationship with the Lord. And if we're married, it's our marriage. And so part of that coaching is, man, if I am not right spiritually, and if my marriage is not healthy, and I'm dating my spouse and growing in that, Paul, like so many other things just don't go well. And a lot of times, unfortunately, those people don't end up in ministry very long. Right. Yeah. So the inside game is so important. And so that's why our encouragement, to each and every one of us and myself is, man, I've got to be pursuing Jesus, and I have to take ownership of that. The church is not responsible for my walk with Jesus. I have to own that. Yeah. And that means too that I need to be disciplined, that my only time with the Lord is not my sermon prep or my weekday, midweek prep for Wednesday night, Bible study. I've got to be having that with the Lord and growing. And then I need to be growing my marriage as well. And then the outside game is our ministry practical skills. How can we grow as a youth pastor? How can we grow in our, skills to make kingdom impact, to reach more students for Jesus? And some of that is, evaluation. It's what are my strengths and weaknesses? And being able to evaluate all of that and to be open to saying, hey, these are areas I need to grow in, and asking my supervisor, hey, how can I grow in this? Or seeking out, a coach and mentor. Hey, these are the areas I need to grow and develop in. So some of it is we need to communicate and have these conversations with our supervisor. Some of it we need to own, and some of it is on the church to help all of us continue to grow and develop, so we're not so people aren't leaving, or cycling through. And some of it is just care, Paul. Like some of us, I think some of it too that people are seeking is, man, I'm just not part of the cog in the wheel. Like you actually care about me as a person and what I'm doing. Gosh, when I'm cared for, it's like, wow, we can go conquer a lot of things.
Is so right about that. And I think the discipleship part, which I tend to focus on heavily in my ministry, is because, when you're a student, you have your youth pastor, you could have a small group leader, you could have, these jobs and opportunities within the youth. Again, your greatest opportunity for discipleship or being discipled is when you're a young person, because it seems to shift. Yeah. That when you get to a certain phase, you've gone, you grow up, you do your 4 years of college, you get educated, so forth, you go back into a church. I would say that the bread is not quite done yet at age 22 to 27. That in that age range, it still needs some time in the oven. And discipleship is something you have to submit yourself to. It has to be on your part, right? Like you said, you got to own it. You got to say, look, I need to find a way. I need to be in a small group. I need to be under somebody's leadership. I can't just keep going like I'm going. I have to find a way to be in and find ways for somebody to disciple me. And yes, that comes through coaching sometimes. Sometimes your coach is your discipler as well. They tell you when you're off the track. They tell you when you're spending too much time doing something. They tell you when your schedule's out of whack. Some of those things, because a lot of youth pastors can't talk to anybody in the church. They can't. They don't want people in the church knowing their business.
Yep. That's why an outside source is so important on that. Yeah.
100%. And so, when they're not being, and the one part is they've got to own it and they got to do it. But listen, if you're a pastor listening, please, by all that is holy and good, if you have a young person between the ages of 22 and 28, or even 30, that are just new or getting into this thing, please take them under your wing. Don't just teach them skills, but care about their life, care about what they're doing, care about their hobbies, what makes them tick. Be kind to them. Everything can't be the bottom line all the time. Right. These folks growing up in the church need to see that you care. Otherwise, you are setting yourself up to lose these students and be disenchanted, quite frankly.
Oh, that's so well said. And that's what we're seeing. That's and that's where, is the data alarming? Yes, but we're still so hopeful, right? This is the bride of Christ, the church. But we also need to recognize, hey, here's what the reality is right now. And maybe there are things that we just need to address. And some of it is being able to let's actually slow down for a second and really evaluate, get healthy. And when we can, as a team, as a church, we can then really press on the gas and go after it. You know what I'm saying? I think we just, maybe there's a season where we really all right, we're going to seek the Lord as a team. We're going to ask, questions, and really understand the times that we're in right now. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Let me offer one last question. One last one is this: 42.9% of these youth workers surveyed said they were leaving because of unclear expectations, which may have a lot to do with the 33% leaving due to burnout. So how can youth workers do a better job of clarifying what their job roles are?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've asked a lot of youth pastors, that I coach, hey, do you have a clear job description? And many of them are like, actually, I haven't even seen it in a long time. So I think it's being able to talk with your supervisor too. What is my clear job description? And you might have gone into youth ministry and before COVID and had a job description, and now coming out of it could look a little different. So you might want to walk
or non-existent.
Yeah. You might want to walk through that with your supervisor and say, hey, let's walk through this. What is a clear, realistic job description now in this new environment that we are in and that we're on the same page with? And I think that would be a really helpful process, to go through. And so again, some of that is just leading up, making sure there's no surprises, what's happening. And I think that will serve you really, really well. I think too, it's building a healthy volunteer team with clear objectives on what their role is, spiritual disciplines, making sure that we have a healthy lifestyle, because it's our responsibility to stay healthy. But I would say those, Paul.
Yeah. And those will definitely lead you, I think, too. They go hand in hand with avoiding burnout. If you want to avoid the burnout, then clear expectations. I think clear expectations are the oil and the grease that eliminates the friction. If you're always in self-doubt, if you're always wondering what you're supposed to be doing, if you always feel like you're failing because all that stuff, man, I think that's a huge contributor to folks finding their way out of the ministry, because it's just too frustrating. You just can't. It's a puzzle you can't figure out.
Yeah.
But Dave, thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate you taking time to get on here and talk with us. And any last encouragements you want to leave leave our
Yeah.
listeners today?
I mean, I just want to encourage everyone listening, and I'm so thankful for you and what you do. I've been a youth pastor for many years. I'm also now a father of 3 teenagers, and knowing the youth ministry that's impacting my kids, it's amazing, and I'm so grateful. So keep going. Don't give up. We're in a spiritual battle, and it's real, and he wants to come and discourage you, discredit, and bring all of that. But listen, you are making a difference, and just encourage you, pursue Jesus, pursue him, and let him be your identity, where you get affirmation. And because we're going to have seasons, it's going to be up and it's going to be down, but what's going to sustain us is our relationship with him. And so keep going.
That's it, Dave. Well done. Well said, sir. Where can people reach out to you if they're interested in talking more about Lead 222? If they want to talk to you, if they're interested in coaching, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can check out our website, lead222.com. And the 222 is based off of 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul pouring into Timothy. And now I've entrusted it to you, go pour it to others. And so that's the genesis behind that. And so you can check out our website. You can email me, dave@lead222.com. And love to help in any way. You can, Paul, you can put the survey link available to everybody. Love for people to check out the report we did. And Paul, thank you for all the work that you do, and your ministry and encouragement to all the youth pastors and youth workers out there as well.
Well, it is my pleasure to do, and I thank you for joining in on a conversation and encouraging the youth workers listening today. And but that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening today. And don't forget, youth pastors, if nobody's told you lately that you're doing a great job, let me tell you, you're doing a great job, and you're just going to get better. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.